Well, the royal wedding is over, but the debate still rages about who will end up paying for one of the most extravagant parties in history. And while the cash was splashing for the royal occasion, homes were being raided and people arrested for crimes they say they hadn't committed. What happened to civil liberties of the Queen's subjects? Stay tuned for a Right Royal agenda. The Western media went into overdrive for the royal wedding, but they were remarkably silent over the number of arrests and police raids made ahead of the event, even though no crimes had been committed.
Are you actually going to arrest him?
They're arrested.
Under what law?
Section 24, makes you criminal damage.
Criminal damage isn't criminal damage yet, though. This is a pre-crime. It's a pre-crime.
Some of those arrested were planning protests about the lavish £100 million event, paid for by the taxpayer, at a time when austerity is the buzzword and recession hit Britain. Others were arrested simply for their Republican views and their intent to demonstrate. However, supporters of the British monarchy say the wedding brought a feel-good factor to the UK, and the showcase occasion will continue to boost tourism, bringing in many more millions in trade ahead of the 2012 Olympic Games. Today's agenda asks the question: Britain, who really paid the bill for the royal wedding? Well, the flags are still flying in central London as a reminder of a royal wedding party which has cost tens of millions at a time when we're all being told to tighten our belts. Our first guest is political street theatre activist Charlie Veitch, a man with a megaphone whose organisation, the Love Police, challenges the establishment, and he believes the wedding was a waste of money. And he was ready to express his feelings publicly, but before he could step out of his home, he was arrested by the police, one of many who were locked up for the day. He now says Britain has turned into a police state. Next to him is Benjamin Duncan, a constitutional expert and a big fan of the royal family. He was a TV commentator for the royal wedding and reckons it was money well spent. Our final guest is Chris Banbury, a journalist for the Socialist Worker newspaper. He says the royals are a waste of taxpayers' money and Britain should be considering heading for a republic. But I'm going to start with you first, Charlie. Surely you can't be serious about calling Britain a police state?
I'm extremely serious about calling Britain a police state. First of all, we need to say, what is a police state? It's when the thug enforcement class of the ruling elites, which is the police, this kind of brutalizing cult almost, are given complete police state powers for one day, which was the 28th of April, to round up any political dissidents who had any alternative message to the spectacular propaganda and brainwashing affair that was the royal parasite wedding for the 29th. When I had two fancy dressed uniforms in their fluorescent clubbing police uniforms come to my door and take me away in a cage for 24 hours so that I completely miss the royal wedding, and my alleged crime was conspiracy to cause a public nuisance. Oh, that's serious, a public nuisance.
I think we've got some images playing now of your arrest, because you did video the whole, or your partner videoed the whole arrest.
Yeah, well, you know, someone has to make the establishment accountable. And I'd just like to say, Ben, how can you support this royal wedding charade in 2011, this anachronistic parasite social hierarchy pyramid where some people are born out of a royal vessel? Are you honestly going to sit next to me, seriously, and say that you support that?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, good afternoon, Yvonne. It's always a pleasure to see you. I don't recognise any of your description whatsoever, and what I would say to you, and I like you, I think you're an eccentric, I think you have character, I think you make the world a more colourful place, but I think you should try honestly living in a police state. You should go to South America, you should go to Asia or Africa, into one of those regimes where people go through your waste bins, where you're not allowed to speak publicly. We live in a country, and this channel is proof of it.
Maybe we should use... No,
please, I let you speak. Please give me the courtesy of hearing what I've got to say. I think, we live in a country where we can speak freely on this television channel. We're speaking on a television channel that is aired in other parts of the world that represents views that not everyone in Britain would share. I think we're an extremely tolerant country. I think what this wedding did, well, you might disagree. I think if people don't find this country tolerant, then they shouldn't frankly be here.
Oh!
But the fact remains that this royal wedding brought this country together at a time that we've been facing.
So did the Nuremberg rallies in 1939 Berlin brought Germany together.
Well, if you just hold on, Charlie, I know that if I can bring Chris
democracy in
in.
this country had to be fought against the royal family, and a king had his head cut off in order to secure parliamentary democracy.
Oh yeah, and you really enjoyed those 11 years of
I think it's also
dictatorship.
interesting that the guest list includes people from police states. Prince Mohammed of Saudi Arabia, who's currently invading Bahrain. There's no interest in the problem about people who are carrying out torture and brutality in Bahrain under Saudi occupation. They were welcome to the royal wedding. You know, Obama and Sarkozy weren't invited, but I guess that's because Britain and France and America haven't treated the royal family so well in the past. So they're snubbed. You know, I don't think the royal family have got anything to do with democracy. These are a group of people in the 1930s supported fascism, not just the Duke of Windsor, the ex-king, but also the Queen Mother. No, the majority of people did not support fascism. It's not my family. My family, my mother and father, volunteered to fight against fascism in the Second World War and fought against Moslems, black shirts on the streets of London. People did not support fascism.
Well,
it was the elite who supported fascism.
If I can just come to Ben.
They certainly didn't support communism, did they?
If I can just come to Ben and if we just hear what he has to say about this.
Yes.
You were one of hundreds of commentators on the day. Did you not feel uncomfortable at the sight of the Bahraini and the Saudi royal families being there when their human rights record, especially of late over Bahrain, as Chris mentioned, has been scrutinised?
I understand what you're saying, but I think you get into tricky territory there. I think if you accept that diplomacy means that often we have to deal with regimes we might feel unpalatable, I don't like seeing... It was a wedding. I don't like seeing Martin McGuinness in power in Northern Ireland, but it's a result of a peace process that I consider has brought a degree... It was a wedding list, though. Don't you think that the royal family should have used more discretion over who to invite? Well, the problem is, Yvonne, then you go... I'm sure the public were paying, weren't they?
We paid.
Public was paying, but look at the...
I paid for 24 hours by having my freedom taken away.
I paid and didn't get an invite.
Look at the amount of money that's been brought into the country as a result of the wedding. The fact is that this will bring trade to this country. In terms of the Commonwealth, which is something we forget, the Commonwealth is Britain's most valuable trading bloc in a way. We don't utilise it in the way...
Europe is almost a valid trading bloc.
But it should be and it could be.
But Europe is.
Yes, I'm not saying it isn't, but I'm saying that the Commonwealth is a valuable commodity to
Australia and Canada have got no interest in Britain these days. They don't trade with us. They're main links to America.
I worked for, give me some credit, I worked for Australian television on the morning of the wedding. The wedding was of enormous interest to Australia. The Commonwealth, you might dislike this, but the Commonwealth is a family of nations.
The audience figures for the BBC aren't so great for the royal wedding.
Let me just come
I think 90 million isn't too bad.
That's worldwide.
Okay, if I can just come in to Charlie. You're in the minority, Charlie. Most people wanted to go out there, have a good day, support the royal family.
Absolutely. Well, in World War II, most people voted for Hitler. People turned up in their millions to watch the young uniformed men at the Nuremberg rallies and what the royal wedding is. And I'm sorry, Ben, I have to call you out for what you are. You are a New World Order shill for an anachronistic social hierarchy system.
New World Order.
Well, unfortunately you are. And yes, I am in the minority, but as Gandhi said, being in the minority of one doesn't make the truth any less truthful. This country is under a very powerful spell, what Noam Chomsky calls the manufacture of consent. And they use the military, the government, the royal family, and especially the mainstream media, the Zionist-controlled mainstream media, to maintain this ridiculous social hierarchy system of the kind of sheep-like obedience to the royal family. The blue bloods, they're better than us.
I've got two questions for you.
Number one, on that provocative point, we're going over to Mohammed Walji. He went off to Buckingham Palace, not to go inside, but he was outside talking to the people there to see if royal fever was still in the air.
I'm here in central London today outside Buckingham Palace to ask members of the public what they think about the royal wedding. So let's hear what they had to say. Do you think the UK's taxpayer should have had to foot the bill for the royal wedding?
No, I don't think so, because I think the money should have come out of their own funding from the royal family. and it should not have anything to do with the taxpayers' money whatsoever.
Well, the taxpayer didn't put all of the bill, did it? I thought the Middleton family paid some of it and the Royal family for some of it, so the taxpayer only paid for other bits of it. I don't see a problem in paying for a big national celebration. I thought it was, the country seemed to enjoy it.
Was it right for police to round up and arrest in advance anyone suspected of protesting at the events?
It would be difficult to judge on that, considering we don't know the people they did it. They had a right to the public to secure the security of the whole event, so I wouldn't comment on the individual things, but the police have the right to make it secure.
Well, the police had to make some narrow judgments, didn't they? But I expect in the interests of security, they probably had to overstep the mark in a few cases. But okay, come on, it was a celebration. We didn't want people messing up the day, but clearly if people were just protesting, they should have been left be.
Should it have been turned into a bank holiday, forcing people to take time off work?
I think people will not complain about that, but if they were given a holiday, then I don't think people will object to that. But to the economy, probably it had a lot of effect because of the day off.
I think they perhaps should have cancelled the Monday bank holiday and just moved it to the Friday. But yeah, I think it was a day the country wanted off. There was an overwhelming amount of support for the event, and I think it made the country feel good. So I think, a bank holiday was justified.